you guys a place to go to school.
My name is
but there
David
wasn't
Meyerson,
before.
and I'm with the George Washington University.
I'm extremely grateful.
And I'm interviewing
a lot of
Mr. Stephen Melnikoff,
a lot of my fellow
the 29th
students are as
Infantry
well.
Division, in his home in Virginia.
So thank you very much, Mr. Melnikoff.
Do you want to
for
just
being
describe
willing
how you
speak
came
with me?
into the military?
Like
Sure.
your
First,
feeling. I understand you were
You started
were
with a little
drafted,
biographical
correct?
information.
I was
Where
drafted.
and when were you born?
And I was drafted.
Yeah, I'm
in-
Stephen
out of-
Meldikoff.
Well, my hometown was in
Woonsocket,
Woonsocket,
Rhode
Rhode
Island.
But
And
I
had one
I
sister.
went to Quincy, Mass. to
And,
work in a shipyard.
I had
Because
three
it was
children.
an advancement for me.
My
a
wife,
lot more money.
Joyce. One
And
has since
I was
passed away at the
deferred
age of 50.
3 times. That's
I
three,
have two
6 month
grandchildren.
deferment. That's why
And
I
I have
went
6
in later than the others. I actually had a very early number. I would have gone in
Now,
quite early. But
during
I
the
had
service, did you
6 months
maintain a journal of your events,
because I was
or
working on a heavy
a collection of letters from
naval
your service? Have you written
shipyard,
any accounts of your
where we built
experience?
the
I
USS
did not
Massachusetts,
keep a
heavy
journal.
cruises, and
If
most
I
of
had, it
all,
probably would have been
we were
lost
building
anyway, but I did
aircraft
not keep a
carriers.
journal.
And the Japanese were sinking our
My mother
aircraft
saved
carriers.
some of the letters I
and-
wrote home while I
and
was
we
in
were
the
just building them
service.
as fast as we could
And,
because they were such a necessity. That's probably
Since
why
then, I have
did get the
tried
deferments.
in different ways to write down
And I was
things
drafted
so that I
out
wouldn't
of
forget.
Quincy, Mass. Went to Fort Devens.
I remember bringing some of the things home.
Initially,
I had a little notebook with a few little items in it.
I
People who were in
took
my
tests
platoon
that they
or
give
something like that.
the
But I
new
really did not
draftees,
really
and they
had
wanted
a
me
day-to-day journal.
very much to be a pilot.
Now,
Because I passed the
understand that
physical
you have
pilot
had some
training and
interviews submitted
and
to
the
the
educational
Library of
part of
Congress
it.
as part of the Veterans
But I
History
couldn't
Project.
pass the depth perception test,
Do you want to
of
just
the,
talk about
final test.
why you think
They
it's
wanted me
important
so
to
bad
conduct
that they
these kinds
kept
of
me there for
interviews?
3 weeks and would send me
Well,
back every week to try to
I
retake
think
the
it's
test.
important.
But I never could pass it. My depth perception wasn't good enough.
Because
What was
At the
what's,
time,
were you scared when
The
you
war
found
was
out you were
going
going into the
on.
army, or was your
we
family
fellows were
scared?
drafted.
many
Well,
of the people were just
I
out of
don't.
high school.
I imagine a family was,
Not
but
necessarily
I think
well
that
educated.
we just took it in
Some were,
stride.
but many of us
because
were high school
It
graduates.
was a thing that we did,
And
and
from
our
that point,
culture was that whatever you were told to
we
do,
went
you
from
did.
being civilians to being soldiers.
I would say we were much more
And we were-
disciplined
and we
people
turned
than
into
the
men.
people are nowadays, and
It's important
we-
because
we paid more attention to discipline. And
I will just say one thing.
just doing what you're
It's
supposed to
important
do.
because
I don't know that I
some
was
great things
scared.
happened to some
Not
of
at that
us.
time because it was
Well,
far
we
removed
went to
from the
war.
time I would go.
We came
But
back.
we did go.
There was a GI
to
Bill of
Texas,
Rights. Many
And
of us
we
got an
took
education
part in a
because of
brand new
that.
program
We
prior
learned
to
some
us
trade,
going in.
and
Infantry
that
training was
very
only
important.
12 weeks, but we were the
I,
first classes that had 17
I
weeks.
did for a lot
of
with
infantry training.
Not
And
a
we-
lot, but I did for
We
that.
fired and
with,
knew how to take apart every gun
fellow that calls
the
us the Great
infantry had
Generation.
available. And so we went through
And-
quite a
and-
rigorous
and
training.
What we
And we all
accomplished.
knew after a little bit that we were going to
And I
go
think
into combat.
One of the things that
But
he
we didn't
doesn't
know whether we
mention
were going to go to
is
Japan or whether we were going to go to
many
Europe.
of
But we
us,
know where we were
like
going.
myself,
We did.
some of my friends, we were the
Did you form
service
any
with-
long-lasting
I had more
friendships
experience because I wasn't drafted till I
during
was
your time in
23
service?
years old.
Yes,
But
I
many
did.
of I did
Kids
have
were
drafted at 18. They had no
Unfortunately,
experience, so maybe very little work
When
experience.
you leave
or
the service,
education,
the
people get
experience.
scattered because they are from all over
But
the
when we
country.
came back,
And the way we were released, we
because
were
of the GI
released
Bill of Rights,
as we had a certain number of points.
many of us
So
went
it
to
wasn't like
college.
everybody left at the same time.
And
So
he
some
doesn't
had to
talk
serve
about
more
that a lot.
time. And I was out of the service by
One of the
October
things that
of
happened, in
1945.
my estimation,
And,
is
There was
I was
not,
discharged at
my
that time.
estimation, a middle class when I was a kid
And,
growing up. But I
do
do,
rich people.
yes, you had
or
to,
poor people.
yes.
I don't remember middle class.
I did, and I lost some of my buddies. When we got out of the service, I can name you
killed
names.
in action.
We went to school and so
Uh,
forth. I
but
went to University of
when I
Rhode
came
Island.
back,
And I can
Believe it
remember
or not,
some
some of the
40
guys
years
we
after I
were-
came
we were-
back, I ran into my
some of the
sergeant.
guys were
with my
captains in the
sergeant
service.
when I
Some of them
trained
were
in England.
pilots. And then he was my
Bombardiers.
sergeant when we went
I was
into
a tech
Normandy.
sergeant, I was in
And
charge
he was
of
with us
a
till
platoon
he
in
was injured.
combat. He
When
never
I
left,
came
I was in
back
charge of
after
a
he
whole
was injured,
company.
Because his injury was
And
too severe to do infantry
so-
duty again.
we came back, we changed the
Now, were you
culture.
issued
in the
any military
colleges.
awards that you would like to talk about?
Yes,
There
I
were
have 17-year-old
two
kids in
Purple
college. But when
I
we
have
went
3
to college,
stars.
when I went
I
to
have,
college, I knew what I was going to be.
On my
I was going to be a
campaign,
mechanical engineer.
Medal, I
Some of my
have
friends were going to be
4
civil
stars,
engineers.
which are
Well,
for
others
all
were
the
going to be
battles
chemists.
that occurred.
We knew the
I
day
believe
we
it's
went to that
Normandy,
school
Northern
what we were
France,
going to
Central
be.
Europe, and Germany.
That is, if we passed.
And I also
And so
have
we were
an arrowhead for D-Day.
had goals
And these are all on my
that were very, very big.
discharge papers, so that
And
I'm a
when we
town
get out,
post. Include the
uh,
good conduct ribbon.
I think we
and,
started what is
and
now
the victory
called
medal.
the
And
middle
I also
class.
have a
But I think
medal
more important than
for
that,
the German occupation, because after the war we
because
occupied
they
an area
had this GI
called the
Bill of
Bremen
Rights,
Enclave in Bremen,
and I really believe that Congress probably thought there might be 100,000
And
people
after
that
the
take
war,
advantage of it. But I think
the
what
other
we did is probably millions of us took advantage
medal
of
or
it.
whatever you want to call it, I do
And
have.
When we got out of school, we had no
My
idea
battalion,
we'd ever go to college.
175th.
We must have been pretty smart because we were able to do the things we
received
we wanted to do.
Presidential Unit Citation for a battle
When
that
we
was
went, the
called
schools were all very
108,
small.
where we captured
And I
this
can
hill
remember
and
I
held it
went to
against German attack.
University of Rhode Island, but
And at
when
the
when I
time,
went there, it was just
It
called
was
Rhode Island
just about the
College.
deepest penetration
And
that any American
the government
unit made
then,
in
because they
Europe
made a
against the
promise,
Germans.
they had to build more
And for that,
buildings, more
we also
classrooms,
received
and make more room
a,
for us. And I
French
think
croix de guerre from
the
the
thing
French
that he
government.
misses, Tom Brokaw,
Since
is
the war, I've also
that
received
because of us,
the French
the
Medal of
government
Honor.
expanded the
French
college system probably by tenfold.
Is there a particularly
And then,
vivid memory of your World War
Because
II
we were college
experience that you'd like
graduates,
to describe?
our kids became college
Well,
graduates. And I think we were the ones, some of the
That really
vivid
started
things
the middle class.
that I saw,
I won't
and I think he
describe
doesn't
them very
emphasize
much.
that as enough.
But
Okay, perfect.
Some of the
I
battles
was going to double
scenes,
check,
you guys,
they were very
a place to
catastrophic.
go to school, but there wasn't before.
and
I
we're,
lost my
I'm
best
extremely
buddy.
grateful. I can
He
say
was
I
to
know
be
a lot of
Bombing automatic
a lot of my
rifleman,
fellow students
And I
are
was
as well.
his assistant, and we were
Um,
together in training in Texas.
Do you want to just describe
And then
how
we were
you
assigned
came into
that
the
job.
military?
Like
What your feeling? I understand
together.
you were
He
drafted,
was killed
correct?
on
I was
June
drafted,
16th.
and I was drafted out
I
of,
actually took his
well,
billfold,
my
carried
hometown
the
was
rest of the
Woonsocket,
war,
Rhode Island.
And after the war,
But,
brought it and
uh,
gave it to his family. I also
I-
have a vivid memory.
I went to Quincy, Mass. to work
people
at a
that were
shipyard
very-
because it was an advancement for
Uh,
me, a lot more money, and I was deferred 3 times. That's
That had very
6-month deferment. That's
bad
why
injuries that
I
I
went
could
in
remember
later
of
than the
the-
others.
yeah.
I actually had a very
Also, I
early
can-
number. I would have
Good
gone in
memories
quite
of
early,
my
but I had
uh,
6
first
months
lieutenant who was in
deferment
charge of my
because I was
platoon,
working on a heavy
and he was
naval
killed
ship
on the day
shipyard.
I was injured. And I
Where
have
we
a
built the
vivid
USS
memory.
Massachusetts,
And
heavy
my memory
cruisers, and
of that
most of
is-
all, we were
is that
building aircraft carriers.
It was
And the
almost
Japanese were
suspended
sinking
in
our
animation,
aircraft carriers,
and the Germans kept
and-
firing.
and we were
machine
just
gun
building
bolts
as
over, and
fast
he
as we
couldn't-
could because
He couldn't get
it was
down.
such a necessity. The
Bullets
bullets
sort
sort of kept them
I
up.
did get the
I was able to
deferments.
get down and I was injured.
So
And
I have
was
memories
drafted
like that
out
and
of
others.
Quincy, Mass.
Those are my most.
Went to
vivid
Fort Devens.
memories, yes. I have a memory
Initially,
of a fellow we had to cross
I-
over who died on
I
a
took tests that they
bridge
give
going over the Ruhr River. We
the
had
new
to step over him.
draftees, and they wanted
The
me
memories are not
very
nice.
much to be a
They're-
pilot.
That kind of memories.
Because I passed the physical
There weren't
for
many, you know,
for
good
pilot
memories.
training
That's
and
why we're
and
not
the
able to talk too much
educational
about
part of it.
No.
But I couldn't pass the depth
That's
perception
memories I
test
have.
of the
But were there
final test.
were there any
They wanted me so
particular
bad
jokes
that
that
they
you
kept me
remember
there
at the
for 3
time?
weeks, and would
I
send me
don't-
back every week.
I won't say
to
they were jokes.
Retake the test.
But I
But
never
there were a
could pass
couple
it
of
by
other
that
things, and I
perception
just
was
would
good enough.
tell you, I did
What was-
jot something
what's,
down.
Yeah.
Were you
And
scared when
I
you found out
was-
you were going into the army, or was your
I never
family
had
scared?
training as a sergeant. Well, I imagine
I
I
was
was
a
a
battlefield.
battlefield, but I think
Lieutenant
that
told me, "You're now
we just
sergeant
took
of
it in
the
stride.
Third platoon, and
Because
it was just done just
It
like
was a
that.
thing that we
Don't remember the
did,
day,
and
don't remember his name, don't
our
remember what he
culture
looked like,
was
anything
that-
like that.
So
Whatever
I really
you were
wasn't
told to do,
trained
you
as a
did.
sergeant.
We were,
But I can
I would say we were
like,
much more disciplined people than the people are nowadays.
We're going in
Someplace
we-
in Germany, we paid more
It
attention
might have
to
been Belgium, I'm
discipline
not
and,
sure, probably just
just
Germany.
doing what you were
And there was
supposed
a
to do.
deer.
Right.
I don't know
And
that I was scared.
My men
Not
wanted
at
to
that
know,
time because it was,
far
far
removed
squad
at
at
the
the
time,
time.
they
They
said,
wanted to know
but I would
They
take
did
the
go
fire at it.
to
And
Texas.
I probably broke all kinds of
And
rules. I
we,
says, go ahead. but they
took part in
didn't-
a brand
they
new
didn't hit
program
the deer.
prior
So
to
it's kind of
us going
funny
in.
that I let them do that,
Training
but they
was only
still
12
weren't able to
weeks.
hit the deer.
But we were the first
Another funny
classes
thing
that had
that I will tell
17
you is
weeks.
that
of
I can remember
infantry
once,
training, and
uh,
we fired and
we
knew how to take
overran
apart every gun
the German
that the
position
infantry had available.
probably was in
And so
France.
We went through quite a
And there
rigorous
was a lot of
training,
there was
and we
chickens
all
there.
knew after a little
And
bit
so
that we were gonna go
here we had
into
some live
combat.
chickens.
What we didn't know whether we were gonna
And,
go to Japan or
so
whether
we've
we were
got the
gonna
live
go to Europe.
chickens.
But
Now
we knew
how are we
were
gonna
going.
cook
We
'em?
did.
Well, I said, well,
Did you form
anybody know
any
how to,
long-lasting
how to prepare a chicken?
friendships or?
And nobody said,
during
no,
your
we
time
don't
in
know how to
service?
do it.
Yes,
Generally your
I
father
did-
did or your
I
mother.
did have some.
And in those days,
Unfortunately,
like now you get chicken that's all ready for you, you just throw it in
when
the
you
oven.
leave the service,
But this is a chicken with the
people get
feathers and
scattered
it's
'cause they are
alive.
from all over the country.
So,
And the way we
well,
were
finally,
released,
one
we
of
were
the-
released
one of the
as we had certain number
kids,
of points.
one of the soldiers
So it
said,
wasn't like everybody
he was
left
from
at the
probably
same
Virginia,
time.
or
So
West
some had to
Virginia. He
serve
says,
more time.
well, I don't know how to
And I was out of the
skin it.
service by
I don't know how
October
to
of
take care of a chicken, but I know how to skin a coon,
1945.
and I know how to skin a rabbit. I said, well, go ahead. So we skinned the chicken and we cooked it and
And,
ate it.
but
Because
I
we didn't
knew-
know how to
You asked me
get the
if I had to-
feathers off.
Yes,
So I thought that
I-
was kind of funny.
I did.
I
I
lost
had
some
in
of my
buddies,
platoon. A fellow by the name of
killed in
Susan.
action,
He won't see this, so it doesn't
and
matter.
so forth.
And he was
But
from Hawaii.
When I came back,
And I don't think he ever had these
believe it
shoes
or not,
before he came
40
into
years
the
after I
Army.
came back,
Because he
I
never
ran
could
into my
keep his
sergeant,
shoes
who was
laced
my
up.
sergeant when I trained in England.
So when we had
and he was
inspection,
my sergeant when we
I
went
had to
Normandy.
sign, I was his Texan,
And
he
he
was
was
with
with
us.
us.
We would
He
have
was
to
injured.
sign a man to
He never
watch
came
him,
back
get
after
him
he was
dressed
injured,
and watch
because
him,
his injury was
that he didn't
severe to
sit down in the
do
dirt
again.
and untie his shoes. Because
Were you
he just
issued
couldn't stand
any
to be
military
laced
awards
up.
that you would like
Because
to
once
talk
inspection was
about?
over, he would have
Yes,
tied
I-
him, you know. But I thought that
I
was kind
had
of funny.
two Purple
you know.
Hearts.
You know, we have all
I
kinds
had
of
3
people. You
Bronze
know, he was
Stars.
from Hawaii, and I have a
I
hunch that
have,
he might not even own the
on my
pair of shoes,
campaign,
you know. Because in Hawaii, it's warm,
Medal,
and, you know,
I have
it's
4 stars,
but
which
But I don't know.
all the battles.
but the best
occurred.
jokes are the
I
ones that
believe it's
that
Normandy,
Maudlin
France,
does.
Central Europe, and Germany.
And if you look at
And,
those,
I also
the guys
have,
are unshaven and unkept and
Arrowhead
that's what
for
the-
D-Day.
That's what a JI.
And these are all on my
Yeah.
discharge papers, so that I've been telling
Um,
those include the good conduct ribbon
What should
and
Future
and the victory
generations
medal,
learn
and
from
I
your
also
experience.
have a medal for the German occupation, because after the war
Well,
we occupied an area called the
I'm
Bremen
not so sure what
Enclave
they
in
can learn,
Bremen,
'cause
Germany.
it looks like we
So
haven't
it was
learned.
time for me to go home.
We haven't learned in
And
Iraq,
after the
we
war,
haven't learned in Afghanistan,
the other
we haven't learned in Israel, we haven't learned in a lot of places.
medal, or whatever you want to call it, I do have, is my battalion.
It had to be a unique
of the
situation,
175th
first because
Battalion,
we did
6th Infantry Regiment.
collectively
We
free up
received
the presidential unit
for the people
citation
to
for a
revert
battle that was
back to
called Hill 108,
their own countries.
where we captured this hill
But,
and held it against German
I
attack.
think one of
And
the
at the
lessons
time,
that
it
made me
was
learn
just
from
about the
this,
deepest penetration
you have to be very
that any
careful
American unit made in Europe against the
about
Germans. And for that, we also
received
going into other countries and
a,
thinking that you can
French
solve
courtier
their problem
from the
that
French
you make up a
government.
government for them. Since the
Uh,
war, I've
if
also
they don't
received
really want it.
the French Medal of Honor
And
from the French government.
I know we had a revolution, and
Is there a particularly
the United
vivid
States
memory
was
of your
made
World
up
War
and
II
we have a great
experience that
government.
you'd like to describe?
and France the same way.
Well,
but you just some of the
the
vivid
lesson
things maybe that I saw,
Because
I won't
this was
describe
a
do or
very
die
much,
situation. Maybe that's a
but
reason to work.
some
But
of the
what we
battles
did do
scenes
probably
was
was
very
very
catastrophic.
Even though
I
we did the bulk of
I
the
lost my
fighting,
best buddy.
we just gave the
He
countries
was
the
the
BAR,
BAF,
the
their own
automatic
people.
riflemen,
But it was
and I
France,
was
his
Belgium,
assistant.
and we were
know,
together in training,
Germany,
and we gave it back to
Texas,
those people to do
and
what
then
they
we
went
were
with.
assigned that job.
and
And
they're
in
the only
unit,
ones that really can
and we're
solve
always
those
together.
problems.
and he was killed on June 16th.
How do you feel about
I'll never
fictional
forget that.
portrayals of the war?
I
do you feel that
actually
they're
took
they're
a
accurate?
billfold
Or?
and carried it the rest of
I-
the war.
And
I
after the war
am
brought it and gave it to his family.
Very resentful.
I
of
also
some of
have
that.
a good memory of, I've seen some of the
People
movies
that were very
like,
That's
the
the
very first one of the Longest Day, I guess.
where they depict
That
the
had
Germans
very
as
bad
been
injuries
dumb.
that I can remember, I'll never forget.
being not good soldiers.
Also, I remember one of
Vivid
his
memories
memories a left foot on the right foot, his boot and that. First lieutenant,
was in
somebody
charge
was
of my
some officers got caught with his
And he was
pants
killed
down.
on the day I was injured.
That's
And I
not
have
true.
a very vivid memory. And my memory
Those
of that is
soldiers,
as if,
and the Germans,
he was almost suspended in
Imagine
animation, and the
They
Germans
conquered
kept firing
machine gun bullets over the
French,
French,
the
the Belgians,
he couldn't get down.
the Dutch,
The
the
bullets sort of kept him up.
just
I was
named
able to get down and I was
Polish,
injured.
Czechs.
So I have
all these
memories like
countries,
that and others.
And they defeated the
Those are
British
my
Army.
most kind of vivid memories.
They sent the British Army
I have
home
a
without
memory
any guns or anything.
of a fellow we had to cross
This was
over
an army,
who died on
and
a
the soldiers there
footbridge going over the
were
Rio River. We had
very,
to step over him.
very good soldiers. The memories are not nice. They're that
They had
kind
very
of
good
memories.
memories. There weren't many,
In some
you know,
cases,
good memories. That's why
Better than ours.
we're
In
not
many
able to
cases,
talk
better
much
than our
about it.
equipment. And they had experience.
Those are
They
the kind of memories I
went
have.
through 4 years before war.
But were
before
there
we
were there
went
any
after them.
particular
And just
jokes that
imagine
you
if
remember
the
at the
Russians
time?
and us and English. All
I mean,
these
I
countries, I won't say we were jokes. Those soldiers, but there were a couple of fun things, and I just were good soldiers. Tell you, I did shot
And they were
something
tough.
down here,
And
and I never had
I
training as a sergeant. I've read in history, but I was a battlefield. General Bradley, lieutenant, told me
on
you're
D-Day,
now
wasn't
sergeant
sure
of the
that we were going to make
third
it.
platoon, and it was just done just like that. Don't remember the day, don't remember his name, don't remember what he looked like, anything like that. So I really wasn't trained as a sergeant. But I can remember stuff like we were going in someplace in Germany, or it might have been Belgium, I'm not sure, probably it was Germany, and there was a deer. And my men wanted to know, I had a squad at the time, they said, well, they wanted to know if they could fire at it. And I probably broke all kinds of rules, I says, go ahead. But they didn't hit the deer. So it was kind of funny that I let them do that, but they still weren't able to hit the deer. Another funny thing that I will tell you is that I can remember once we overran a German position, probably was in France, and there was a lot of there were chickens there, and so here we had some live chickens, and so we've got the live chickens now. How are we going to cook them? Well, I said, well, anybody know how to prepare a chicken? And nobody says, no, we don't know how to do it, because you generally your father did or your mother. And in those days, like now you get chicken that's all ready for you, you just throw it in the oven. But this is a chicken with the feathers and it's alive. So, well, finally one of the kids, one of the soldiers said, he was from probably Virginia, West Virginia, he says, well, I don't know how to skin I don't know how to take care of a chicken, but I know how to skin a coon, and I know how to skin a rabbit. I said, well, go ahead. So we skinned the chicken and we cooked it and ate it, because we didn't know how to get the feathers off. So I thought that was kind of funny. I had in my platoon a fellow by the name of Souza. He won't see this, so it doesn't matter, and he was from Hawaii. And I don't think he ever had any shoes before he came into the Army, because he never could keep his shoes laced up. So when we had inspection, I had to assign, I was a tech sergeant at the time, we would have to assign a man to watch him, get him dressed and watch him, that he didn't sit down in the dirt and untie his shoes. Because he just couldn't stand them being laced up. Because once inspection was over, he would untie them, you know. But I thought that was kind of funny that, we have all kinds of people, He was from Hawaii, and I have a hunch that he might not even own a pair of shoes, Because in Hawaii it's warm and, it's so, yeah. But I don't, but the best jokes are the ones that Maudlin does. And if you look at those, the guys are unshaven and unkept. Well, that's what a JI in combat looks like. Yeah.
What should future generations learn from your experience?
Well, I'm not so sure what they can learn, because it looks like we haven't learned. We haven't learned in Iraq. We haven't learned in Afghanistan. We haven't learned in Israel. We haven't learned
a lot of places. It had to be a unique situation because we did collectively free up Europe for the people to revert back to their own countries. But I think one of the lessons that may be learned from this, you have to be very careful about going into other countries and thinking that you can solve their problem, that you can make up a government for them if they don't really want it. And I know we had a revolution, and the United States was made up, and we have a great government, and France the same way. But you just the lesson may be that because this was a do or die situation, maybe that's a reason to work. But what we did do probably was a very important. Even though we did the bulk of the fighting, we just gave the countries back to their own people, whether it was France or Belgium or Holland, or Germany. We gave it back to those people to do what they would with it, and they're the only ones that really can solve those problems.
How do you feel about fictional portrayals of the war? Do you feel that they're accurate, or?
I am very resentful of some of that. I've seen some of the movies, like what's the very first one of the Longest Day, I guess, where they depict the Germans as being dumb, being not good soldiers. I remember one puts a left foot on the right foot, his boot and that, or some officers get caught with his pants down. That's not true. Those soldiers and the Germans, can you imagine that? They conquered the French, the Belgian, the Dutch, just name them, Polish, Czechs, all these countries. They defeated the British Army. They sent the British Army home without any guns or anything. This was an army, and the soldiers there, they were very, very good soldiers. They had very good equipment. In some cases, better than ours. In many cases, better than our equipment. And they had experience. They went through 4 years before war, before we went after them. And just imagine, it took the Russians and us and English, all these countries, to defeat them. Those soldiers were good soldiers. And they were tough. And I've read in history that General Bradley on D-Day wasn't sure that we were going to make it. And they thought, and if the Germans had acted, they probably would have stopped us. But they were slow to react, and it wasn't the soldiers' fault. It was the high command, and they had to stop us that very first couple of days, but they didn't commit. So, but I resent that because those people were great soldiers, had very good equipment, in many cases better than ours, and it just shows how hard we had to fight to defeat them.
Now, you've recently returned from France as part of the 70th anniversary of Normandy, along with several others from the 29th Infantry Division.
Yeah.
Why did you feel it was important to stay connected?
Well, I go, and one of the main reasons I go is because one of the big and highlight of the story of the trip is going to the cemetery at Colville, and those people are the ones that suffered the most. And I think there's something like 9,000 people buried at Colville,
And that trip, we also went to St. James, and there's thousands buried there. And what's not known to many people is that when these people were temporarily buried along the beach or wherever they fell, they disinterred them, and President Truman gave the families the option of bringing them home. And they say that equally as many people as are buried at that cemetery were brought home from France to be buried here in the United States. And I wasn't even aware of that till very recently. So the way I say it is this: those people that are in those cemeteries, they're the ones that gave their lives so that some of those veterans, like the ones who were with us on this trip, were able to make it back home. And so I go to honor those people. They were the ones that really did the heavy lifting. They paid with their lives. Many of them never even saw a medal because they were young kids. A lot of them were 18 years old, 19 years old. Never had a single medal. And in contrast to some of the people you see, officers or what have you, that have a list of medals like that. And many of those medals, as far as I'm concerned, are very insignificant. The big medal is the Purple Heart and that you gave your life. I go to honor those people.
Now, was your home different when you returned from overseas? And in
Yeah.
addition to that, were you different when you returned
Yeah.
from overseas?
I would say our home life was not much different, but I think it was more somber. I know it affected my mother a lot. She cried a lot and stuff. Yeah, it affected the people that way. You know, in those days they gave you a gold star to put in your window if you lost your son, and they were all over the place. And so yeah, it was a somber time, and really the GIs that never had a chance to celebrate it. You know, the people at home did, but the ones up in Germany or wherever when the war was over, we never celebrated. There was no time to do that. Yeah. Now I was affected, sure. I think I was affected in I don't think I was affected in any negative way. Many people were. I think there was a lot of what they call battle fatigue, or now they have a different name for it. And many people were not able to talk about what happened during the war their whole lifetime. I have a number of people that I know, all personal friends of mine, that never talked about the war. There was a fellow up the street from me. His kids went to school with my kids, played with my kids. His name was Al. We would talk, but we never talked about the war. And he passed away. And I have a little guilt complex because Al used to have to stop at a bar he used to call the Star Cafe up here in Cockeysville most every night. And when he died, the kids found in the attic a flight jacket, a wings, and an Air Force hat. And he had been a P-51 pilot in Europe. And his three boys never knew a thing about it. They were kind of a hero, their father was. But that and there are other instances where the people could not talk about whatever happened. Yes. Yeah.
Now, you've talked a little bit about your respect for the enemy soldiers in terms of soldiers, but how did you feel about them as human beings, and how do you feel about them now, the men that you fought against?
I have no animosity, never had it for the German soldier, because I felt that probably 90
95, 90, 98, some percentage like that were probably drafted just like I was into the service. And they were given the job to do it. I was shoot the guys that are coming at you, and that's what they did. Now, the only people that I have no respect for are the SS troops and the ones that tortured or killed American soldiers or other people. Those I have no respect for. But I think that was a small majority. Whatever, I don't know how you can figure that in. And yeah, but otherwise, I think as a soldier is a soldier. He's given a job, and his job is to fight, and I think that's what they do. Excuse me, they fight. Yeah.
What would you say is your proudest achievement?
Well, I will say, I think the fact that I became a tech sergeant, I was a first sergeant by the time I left. I was actually acting first sergeant of my company when I was given the word to go home. I think the fact that I was able to go to school, I actually, 10 years after I graduated from high school, earned a degree in mechanical engineering, had a career, and I think I and my wife, who I married at the beginning of my sophomore year, by the time I graduated, had 2 boys by the time I graduated from University of Rhode Island. I think we achieved as a family, we achieved a great life. I can remember talking to my wife and telling her, we have to graduate as a mechanical engineer, and if we do that, we'll have it made. And no true words were ever spoken. My daughter graduated from Rhode Island as a business administration. My son graduated from Rensselaer Poly as an engineer, and then went ahead, became a lawyer. My other son didn't go to school because he didn't want to study, and he wound up being a utility engineer for the city of Leesburg. So I think the fact that I was able to lift myself and my family to middle class status, I think was my biggest achievement. And I think it was the leadership qualities that I learned in his service, and it helped to do that.
What would you say was the most difficult aspect of participating in the military?
I think basic training, they give you a lot of hard things to do, and I understand what they're trying to do. They toughen you up for a job that you're going to have. It's going to be a very difficult job. You know, they make you go through these marches and all the stuff that you went through. We had to learn how to use every weapon available. And then the other tough part is that out there, you never could stop going. In other words, I can remember in my mind when we were in France, it would become daylight about 5 o'clock in the morning, and we'd have to move out, and then we wouldn't stop till maybe it was 9 o'clock at night, and we just would keep going. You keep going, and you see people falling by the wayside. You just kept going. Those are the hardest things you're doing, to see what happens, that sort of thing, yeah.
Would you encourage younger family members to join the military, or did you?
I did not encourage them. One of my sons actually was in the National Guard and then served in the Army for his allotted time. I certainly wouldn't encourage anybody to go into the Marines or the infantry. I haven't, and I didn't, but because they were sort of in between the time that they had to go. It might not be bad for somebody to go into service. You could pick your service where you could become, if you don't have any chance to go to school, you could learn a trade, and that might be okay, something on that order. But as a general rule, I would not encourage it, no.
Are there anyone? Is there anyone that you met during the war that isn't alive right now, that didn't have a chance to make this kind of an interview? Anyone that you would like to talk about?
Yes, I will talk about my buddy. We met in Texas. We trained together. When we got to England, we were bound together because he was the Browning rifleman and I was the assistant. And we were always together because they would always say, the Browning BAR team over there, BAR team over there. We were always together. Yes, and he was killed on June 16th. And he was a great guy. Probably might have gone back to school, had a great life. And he didn't. He only lasted 9 days of combat, 10 days of combat, whatever. But that was not unusual, you know, where it was difficult. It was a difficult job that we had, trying to go through the hedgerows, where we lost men every day. So, yeah, I would single it out as one of my best buddies. But we had other great guys that I can recall that did their job. My sergeant was a great guy. He was with the platoon, and he was injured on July 16th, and he never came back because his injuries were too serious to come back to the infantry. Yeah, I would acknowledge those guys as, great guys.
And finally, regarding the trip to France that you recently made. So there were several student veterans from the George Washington University, myself included, who accompanied your group. Do you have any feelings about current younger student veterans from a university like the George Washington University joining a group like yours on for the 70th anniversary?
I think it's great. I will say that what you're probably doing is great. I noticed that in my travels to England, my travels to France, the people there recognize more what the GIs went through than the people in the United States. Actually, they don't even teach history more in the schools anymore. And they probably don't even know what D-Day is, many of the people. So that knowledge should come out because, the world could have been a lot different if it hadn't turned out the way it did. And it's guys like you that have to get the message out. Otherwise, how are they going to know, And even then, I think it's a miss how the people that fight in the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq come back and they're not recognized, or they're not, shall I say, treated as well as they should. It just, doesn't seem right. But I'm a believer that I'm not so sure that it was a wise thing to have a volunteer army. Because what happens, the rest of the populace figures, well, those guys wanted that job, so they got the job, so you asked for it, so you got it. I think maybe the legislators wouldn't be so free to go here and go there and fight these wars if their own sons and daughters had to go. But they, darn well their sons and daughters aren't going to go. So they leave that to the others, so yeah, you have to get the word out of what happened, because it could have been a much different world, that's for sure.
Well, Mr. Melnikoff, as a fellow veteran, as an American, just as a citizen of the world, I Thank you for everything you did 70 years ago and for talking to me today.
Thanks for having me.